Chief?
No, I don't guess. There's something you can think of or somebody I can grab them real quick if we need to.
Any updates? I talked to Sergeant Racy only about something else that I'm working on, but are there any updates from his department?
We're actually looking at kicking off CPA as soon as April,
Okay.
back in person if things stay on track. It may be a smaller class, but we may do it and then add a few people on Zoom. So that may be a good chance if you would like to participate to jump in.
So could alumni join in on the Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, I'll probably do that.
Yeah, let me catch this call right fast. Hello.
Okay. Come on, computer.
Yes, I'll be there. Okay. Okay. Thank you. But yes, to answer your question is certainly we'll give the alumni a chance to zoom in, and as far as new participants, we'll keep it pretty low on this first time because trying to work out the bugs but and it may be an option if a person has signed up for in person and they can't make a meeting, maybe they can zoom in. So we're this is all new. We do have the technology to do so, but we're going to see if we can make it happen, and then hopefully be back on course and for the fall session, get back to our twice a year sessions of this. And Shay's also, we're looking at other community outreach projects to really kick that off this year again. So uh, with COVID hitting this year, it's really put a damper on some of the things we like to do with our interaction with the community.
Okay. Oh, I'll give you a little insight. I talked to Sergeant Racy about Juneteenth, which is June 19th this year, well, the Saturday events rather. And so I want to have an emergency preparedness theme around it. So I asked about fingerprints and doing like the children's ID. Um, I'm going to look into getting those little jump drives.
Okay.
Because he said the way that it's traditionally done is um, they were given a CD or disc or something with information on it. And as we know, with technology, disc drives are pretty much going to be obsolete in a few years.
Yeah, I agree. But you're right. There's some of those little very inexpensive jump drives you can buy bulk, very reasonable, because you're not storing a whole lot of data.
All right, Sean. So I've hit live, and we're almost. Um, Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? This is Kabila Jones. As you see, it's Chief Elliot with me today, and Lagranzi's on. Today is the first Wednesday of the month, so you know what that means. Get your questions and comments ready. We'll be happy to try to answer them on air as time allows. We'll be sharing some updates with the Jonesboro Police Department, what's been happening. Can't wait to get Chief's insight on what happened all during the week of the snowstorm. Like I can't imagine all the calls the officers had to answer. And I saw the messages y'all put out. We'll get into that. Um, I'll tell you what, even if it's something you don't need, you think you need now, I think everyone should have one 4x4 vehicle in their garage or know somebody that has one.
Absolutely. It kind of brings us into what you were talking about is emergency preparedness planning. I think
Yes.
that is a topic that a lot of people they don't really think about. And we had this ice storm, and then we're coming into tornado season
Don't say that too loud.
very soon. So it's there's some things to start thinking about. Um, on preparedness, and there's websites you can go to that show you some things that to have in the event of disaster, and so that's a good topic.
I'm definitely trying to put some things together. I've been doing some research, and so yeah, getting when it gets closer to June, I'll definitely put that messaging out there, and hopefully we get all the different first responders and other departments together. So, but we're going to go live on air. So those of you on Facebook, hold on. Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday to you. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLK 102.5 FM. It's the first Wednesday of the month. You know what that means? It is JPD's Day, and we're joined by Chief Rick Elliot of the Jonesboro Police Department. And then we have Laganzi on standby. He's doing some other things, but he'll join in the conversation soon. So how are you doing today, Chief?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing quite well. I hope you
Uh,
are. Well,
Yes, we're doing wonderful now that we're on the other side of the snowstorm. So that's where we're going to start today. We know that you all work hard within the resources that you have, and I'm sure that that week pushed you to the limit. So let's talk about what it was like, how the officers responded, um, what happened.
I mean, of course, the city had a huge snow event, and yeah, it puts a strain on resources, not only on the police department, but the fire department, the street department, the sanitation department. As a city, it takes the whole team working together to keep the city up and running. What we did, just a small part. If it wasn't for the street department out here running uh, nonstop and keeping these streets plowed, putting sand and salt down, we'd have been in trouble. We wouldn't be able to get out and get around. And I think the street department logged over 1,100 hours of overtime. So they were pretty much running with very little sleep and to keep the city up and going. And of course, sanitation fell behind. The trucks couldn't run uh, due to the snow and ice. The trash accumulated. But as soon as the weather broke, they worked nonstop to get everything picked up and get back on track. So that worked out well. But during the snow event, our accidents actually didn't get as high as I thought they were going to be. The first day when we had that weather hit, uh, seems like the streets in town were okay, and at the industrial park, all of a sudden, it just turned into a sheet of ice.
Ooh,
So people were driving through town, and it's like, oh, these streets aren't bad. And you get out the industrial park, and there's nothing but black ice, and they're running regular speeds, and all of a sudden, off in the ditch they go. And at one point, we had 20 to 30 cars in the ditch, out in that area. Just people was going everywhere. So that was kind of challenging that day. But but after that, when the snow did hit, our accidents weren't as high as I thought. We averaged every day pushing over 100 vehicles out that were stuck. Officers getting out and helping people get unstuck. So
wow.
uh, they spent a lot of time, uh, not working accidents, but just you get somebody that trying to get up a hill or whatever, that stop and give them a push and give them a hand. So they were out in the cold, end of shift. They were pretty much feet soaking wet and uniforms wet, and they've been out in the elements all day. But we'll do what we got to do to get things done. And I will say the National Guard, they sent some of their troops out and Humvees to help assist motorists. And then our local Jeep club got
Oh,
together. Yeah, people, Jeep owners, they have a club. They got together and were going around town and helping stranded motorists. So that was awesome. That the community got involved and helping each other out. So everything coming together. It worked out well. Of course, the grocery stores had a run on people going in and buying up everything. So there was some shortages at some point in time on milk, the essentials, milk, bread, and eggs. But they quickly got shelves restocked. So I think when you mentioned snow, that's the first thing people have to run the store and and grab, and it's it's kind of funny, but since when I was a little kid, growing up, and you mentioned snow, it's my mother, we loaded up in the car and go to the store, make sure we had milk, eggs, and bread. I mean, just the essentials. And I thought, well, okay. And of course, today's time, there's more stores available, and the cities are better equipped with the clearing equipment. And generally, we're not stuck, that long. And depending where you live, if you live on a secluded area, you may be snowed in. And that kind of goes back to
Mm-hmm.
disaster preparedness that, you need to have canned goods on hand and things like that. If you can't get out, that you can sustain yourself, for, several days or actually several weeks. May not, you may not be eating what you want to be eating, but there are some essential foods that you can shelve that's not very costly, but it will sustain you in the event of a natural disaster or being snowed in.
Okay. As we know, crime doesn't sleep. So during this time, when people are just, trying to maintain day to day, did you notice any trends or any upticks in, or just people trying to take advantage of the situation when it comes to crimes? Not necessarily violent crimes, but break-ins, car break-ins.
No, we
Um,
didn't see a whole lot of an uptick. The only good thing during that period, our catalytic converter thefts kind of stopped for a few days. But the weather's broken. They're backed out stealing those again pretty regular. So um, other than a few, of course, we get domestic calls anyway. But people being cooped up in the house, sometimes tempers run short, and we have to get called to come and intervene.
okay. Alrighty. So I want to switch gears a little bit. I saw a post on your Facebook page. This was posted about 5 days ago, and it was you all post the full list of people that had, was it FTAs?
The
FTAs.
different warrants, yeah,
And so it's like you were giving them opportunity. Look, please try to go handle this
sure,
because you all will have to do your job
yeah.
if you encounter them. So can you talk about what the response has been like to that posting?
I've not seen the final numbers yet, where we're at, but we have people did respond. I mean, it's we do have an amnesty program going on right now. So if you have an old warrant or fine, it's out there. Pretty much all you have to do is just go back, go up, make contact, and you know, you may not be able to pay it all off at once, but at least put something down and get reestablished back on your payment plan. That's all we're looking for. So we're not looking to put people in jail. We are trying to clear a backlog of old warrants and people not doing what they should have done. And again, this is the time to do it because once it ends, then we encounter you, then you get loaded up and you get to go out to jail. So you can save yourself some time and headache and trouble down the road by taking care of the situation right now.
Right. And so for those of you who are interested, you need to contact the Craighead County District Court. They're doing things virtually now, and they do have an email address. You just need to get on their schedule on the docket so that they
That's right.
can look at your case, and you need at least $100 down, and then you can work out the rest of the payments however you need to. I really appreciate Judge Bowling and oh goodness, other escape McGanzy.
Tommy Fowler, Judge Fowler.
Fowler, Judge Fowler. I really appreciate them for creating this program to help our citizens get back on track and get off this hamster wheel of what kept them down in the first place. So um, yes. All right. So I see also there has been a new addition to the police department. Patrol lady. I guess. Is it PT? Is it patrol? Sadie Maggie
Lady McGee.
McGee. I'm sorry.
Lady McGee, yes. We welcome Sadie. She is actually from Jonesboro, but she has been working over at the Batesville Police Department and
Okay.
had expressed an interest coming back home with family, being here and all. And so we were fortunate to be able to hire her, and so she can come back home. And seems like she's going to be a great officer for us, and we're glad to have her.
Alrighty. Well, welcome, Sadie. We have some shout outs this morning. Miss Court Evans Hester. Angie McQuay says, love you guys. Jessica McDuffie says, good morning to all. Thank you all for checking. If you have any questions, comments for the JPD or Chief Elliot, please drop them in our Facebook live feed. We'll be happy to get those addressed as time allows. Let's go ahead and talk about, but we usually try to do this at the end, but let's go ahead and get it in now.
Okay.
Testing and CPA.
Yep. We do have a test scheduled for the month of March. So this month we do have a test coming up. So if you're interested in applying for JPD, you can go on our website, fill out an application, and then Sergeant Shay Racy will be in contact with you and go from there. As
Okay.
far
And
as far as our Citizen Police Academy program, right now, we are working out plans to try to restart the last class that we cut off when COVID started. Hopefully, as soon as April, we will cut the numbers down in the classroom, but the remaining numbers that people still want to participate, we will be able to set that up on a Zoom call, and then our alumni will allow them to Zoom in, and then we'll allow a few new members to Zoom. So we'll kind of limit the number of new members on this first go around, since it's our first time we're Zooming, and plus
okay.
and on the Zoom, there's some things that a person some activities person may or may not be able to get involved in, but we're going to try to take the cameras out, and like on traffic stops and things like that, and still film and get that information put out, that part of the class. So a little bit different from us for what we've been doing, but again, times have changed, so we're adapting to those changes and the way of doing business. But I just felt it's important that as soon as we can get the program started again and be doing it in a safe manner, we wanted to get back up and running. So it looks like if things stay on track with the COVID situation, our numbers stay good, we may be out of these masks as soon as the end of March. So
Okay.
things are looking good. The numbers are maintaining a steady pace, but right now we just stress to people this is not the time to get lax. The mask mandate is still in place, but more important, hand sanitizing and washing and is just as important from here on out. And it's just a good health habit. And if we would have had good hand washing and sanitizing, to keep that going, next year when the flu comes around and other things come around, you can cut down on those illnesses. Just like even the stomach bug, there's just transmission of something infectious from one to another. So whether it's COVID or stomach bug, it could be hepatitis. I mean, there's a lot of things that's out there that we could prevent with just good hand washing and sanitizing. So I just want to encourage everybody to, in spite of what the changes are in the COVID rules, don't change your policy on that, and don't get lax on that policy. And just keep yourself and your family safe.
Alrighty. So I wonder, in this, we have about 6 minutes left in the segment. And so I want to ask this. I know this is probably a touchy, controversial, whatever subject, but we, have been hearing the talk about the Stand Your Ground bill that recently passed. The governor, I don't know if he signed it just yet.
I think that's
Um, Today.
I think that he'll make an announcement on what he's going to do today.
as officer, and you've seen, as you follow crime through your career, what is your take on it? What do you feel? What is your take on it?
Yeah. Well, I understand both sides of the coin, and I felt from the beginning that the laws that were already in existence kind of covered it. I mean, you've always had a right to protect yourself from harm, um, and and you can never be the initial aggressor. So if you're not starting problems and somebody comes up and tries to hurt you, you've always had that right to defend yourself. So this law is not giving you anything there. uh, Common sense would always tell you, if somebody's trying to start something, if you can back away from it, then that's the most common sense way to do. Why would you want to get into a physical confrontation with somebody if you can just, walk away from it? Of course, the bill in the House
Right.
says you don't have to walk away. Well, and I guess the concerning thing is, are you going to have bullies out here, looking to instigate something so they can cause harm to somebody? And that's concerning to me and everybody. But again, they become the initial aggressor, so they're not going to be covered under the eyes of the law. So, um, every case that comes up, well, obviously the police will be involved and be investigated, and the prosecutor will look at. So, um, that's kind of where we're at, and that's my stance on it. It just, I don't think it's going to do anything that's, that's not already there. But on the other hand, I hear people say, well, we're tired of being victimized, and crime in the country's gone crazy and whatever. And I just go back to, well, you've always had the right to protect yourself, whether you're out in public or you're home in your property. So
And looking at this from a different perspective, and I've seen comments under the different postings, and people are going to interpret it the way they want, and that's just my personal opinion. And so, do you do you have high concerns, one, that people are going to misinterpret the basis of the law if it is fully passed? And two, are you going to have now have different and more intensive conversations with your officers if they encounter these situations?
well, we're going to conduct an investigation. As far as having an intensive conversation with officers, we're going to investigate the crime, take the statements, and the ultimate decision is up to the prosecuting attorney's office on whether it's just justified or not justified. A lot of people don't realize that we don't make that determination. We just take the facts, write it up, and the prosecuting attorney's office makes the determination whether this situation is justifiable or not. But again, the whole key component that everybody needs to educate themselves on, that the, you cannot be the one starting problems. You cannot be the initial aggressor. And I think when these situations arise, that if it's proved that you are the initial aggressor, then you're setting yourself up for prosecution. So
Okay.
you're not going to be covered under the eyes of the law. So it's pretty plain and simple. You read through it and uh, see what it says, and you can defend yourself, but don't be starting trouble.
Okay. That's the key component there. And do you fear, I don't want to say fear, but do you have concerns that there may be an uprise in people either owning more guns and not necessarily owning them in the right way, getting them in the right way?
Well, you got to understand that this is a record year in this country for gun sales. You're
Okay.
over
Well,
7 million guns sold this year across country. It's
what, in 2020 or 2021?
2020.
Okay.
This past year has been a record sales in the history of gun sales in this country. Gun sales, ammunition sales have been at record numbers. People that never owned guns have bought guns. Um, when you look at things going on across the country, people become concerned and feel that they need uh, means to protect themselves. So, when you buy that gun, it's a liability. So you need to understand when you can use it and when you should not be using it. But then, more important, you need to be trained on it. Just go buying a gun and bullets and never receive any training, then you become a liability because once that bullet leaves the barrel, whatever it hits, well, if it's not the intended target, now you're up for prosecution and civil litigation.
Well,
Uh, so you got to think about this. If you discharge, your weapon in the parking lot at whatever store around town, and the bullet doesn't hit the intended target and hits innocent bystanders, now you're going to jail.
okay. We're gonna
You
put a pause right there. We're
become
gonna take a
negative.
quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're gonna put a pause right there and take a quick break. But for
Okay.
those of you listening on air, we will continue this conversation a little bit on Facebook, but we'll be right back after these announcements. Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead, Chief.
So
Um,
I mean, it's you have a duty to train and be trained, and you got to bear in mind that bullets sometimes will pass through maybe the intended target and then hit somebody else. So these are things that we have to worry about every day if we get involved in that kind of situation. Is you know where you at and is it is it safe or not safe? And so there's a lot of things that have to factor in that new gun owners don't take in consideration. So they've got you got to have training, and failure to do so, then you become negligent, and that open yourself up for civil litigation or criminal prosecution. So um, there's a lot that goes on if you're going to be carrying a gun. There's a lot of responsibilities out there that a lot of people don't take. But as I said, this has been a record year for sales, and looking at the number of concealed carry permits that has been issued this year, again, your record numbers. So I think in general, people across the country are, nobody wants to be a victim of crime. You see crime rates are going up in cities across the country, and people are tired of being victimized and uh, preyed upon, and so they're carrying weapons. And 9 times out of 10, if they get in a situation, just them presenting the weapon has ended the situation without a shot even being fired. And the media doesn't report on that. That you know, there's more situations resolved when the gun's pulled to an attempt to resolve the situation. There's more positives that come out of it than the negatives. So that happens daily across the country. That you know somebody's trying to rob somebody and they pull a gun and stop the robbery, and the bad guy runs off, nobody's hurt, and it all ends well.
okay.
So that's one of those things that just the media doesn't tend to look at and put out there. They just think guns are bad. It's not the gun just a tool. It's the
Mm.
person that has the wicked heart that is the problem.
Yes, and I know there are other organizations. I'm going to get ready to go back on air in a minute. But there are organizations that are trying to fight for more sensible laws, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay, yeah, sensible laws or common sense, and or just basic going back to morals in our society.
Yes. All right, y'all. Welcome back to Community Conversations on Kelly K 102.5 FM. I am joined by Chief Rick Elliot of the Jonesboro Police Department. We've been having a good conversation so far. If you missed any part, you're going to just have to go back and watch the Facebook live feed, the Facebook video. I want to read a few comments for people that are checking in. Jessica McDuffie says, I'm just loving watching God touching Jonesboro, getting to the root and breaking chains. Be the blessing, healing, Jonesboro. And good morning to Miss Linda Johnson Frazier, who says, good morning, Kelly K. And hello, Chief Rick Elliot.
Hey, good morning.
All right. So, don't want to stay on this topic too long, but I would just like to encourage everyone. be sensible, as you said, be mindful, take the proper precautions. If you are a gun owner, get trained. Simply, just get trained on
Yeah,
that.
you're right. Be responsible, and this is part of this shooting complex that it's currently under construction here in Jonesboro. It's an educational place that you can come and learn to be a safe and responsible gun owner. So, and plus, and receive education. So, that will be available. There's millions and millions of guns out there. So it's be responsible gun owners. All I'm asking, and do what you need to do to get there.
Okay. I know the police department has a DARE program, which
Mhm.
addresses drugs and other um, drugs and other topics.
Sure.
Under that, do you have a gun safety component for children? Because I feel that sometimes kids, well, we know that all kids are curious. And if you tell a kid, don't touch, don't do, don't whatever, they're
Right.
going to want to do it more. And so parents need to find a way to take the mysticism out of children wanting to put their hands on it.
Yeah. Well, again, I go the first thing for well, for me back up to answer your question. I think at some point in time they touch a little bit upon that. I've not seen the recent curriculum that their curriculum kind of changes, but one time we definitely touched upon that. And at one time we were offering gun locks to people that wanted them. I think we still have a few available, but uh, again, part of being a gun owner, you have to be a responsible gun owner. If you got kids in the house, then you need to make sure your gun is in a location that kids can't get access to. Kids are going to pilfer through your stuff at some point in time. So uh, keep the gun and the ammunition in separate locations or keep it locked up and be responsible. It's just like owning a motor vehicle. You have a responsibility. When you're out driving on the street, you have laws and things you have to go by. You have to be a responsible individual. And the same thing applies with guns that you've got to be responsible and put them up. Uh, we've seen even here that, a kid accident gets a hold of a gun and either shoots himself or a little friend. And these are tragedies that, could have been avoided. Just people take a little time and do due diligence in securing their weapons.
Okay. So let's move on. We talk about different crimes that happen on some, I don't want to say they're seasonal, but you see a change in some things during each season. And so the weather's getting warmer. People are
Mhm.
going to be out and about more. And again, as you say, we mentioned earlier that the mask mandate may be lifted. We don't know what Arkansas is going to do, but things are getting a little more relaxed. And so people may tend to get a little more relaxed in their everyday outings. And so, what are some things you want people to know, be aware of? How do you want them to conduct? How do you recommend they conduct themselves on their day to day outing?
Well, I mean, it goes back to the basic principles in life. What we should have been taught when we're young, and what the Bible teaches us that we should be mindful and respectful of each other. And in today's society, it's become the me generation, and people don't want to think of others or anybody else. But if we just stop a little bit and be mindful and be more considerate of others and those that are around us, then the city be a better place and the country be a better place and the world will be a better place. The solution is simple, just getting people to comply and, follow that philosophy is the challenge. But, I think Miss McDuffie mentioned something about, city coming back to a revival. It's like, absolutely. There needs to be a revival across the country because uh, we've turned away from God for way too long, and the end result is nothing but sin and things are getting out of control, and that's problematic.
Yes,
And
sir.
it causes these problems that you know that we're seeing, and we're blessed in our community that we live in because we are a large city, but our crime rate is not as high as it could be, or compared to some other cities our size, even other cities half our size or a fraction of our size that have higher crime rates than we do. I think it's just the people in Jonesboro. We still look out for each other, still take care of each other, and we always want the best for our city. So that's what makes this city a great place to live and come and raise a family and even move to. Jonesboro has received several accolades from across the country over the past several years. A good place to, we've been noted, as one of the top places to live on various aspects. So there's a lot to offer here, and a lot going on in Jonesboro, and there's a lot still coming to Jonesboro. I think you're going to see a lot of new businesses and restaurants and things still coming in, and so the city's growing. It's in a good direction. Obviously, we're going to do our part and to keep the crime rate down, because with a low crime rate, the impact is people will come. It At some point in time, when an industry looks at your city, they're going to look at your crime stats. If your stats are your crime is out of control, then that's a can detour them from wanting to come and invest millions of dollars into your city.
Okay.
So it takes all of us working together, though, to have a safe city. And we certainly appreciate the community support that we've had over the past years in helping us combat crime. And we don't want that to slow down by any means.
Okay. I know that we as in a community, haven't had the opportunity to have many conversations. I remember I pulled up some memories on Facebook from about, I know it was at least 2 or 3 years ago, where the police department would have conversations with the at the NAACP meetings. And
Sure.
so I want to get your take on this situation that made national news. A teenager was walking home from work. Yes, it was cold. It was, snow on the ground. And so the police encountered him, said they received a report that someone was walking and wobbling, you know, not dressed properly for the weather. And so the police did have their cam on, and you could hear the conversation. So basically the boy was like, I'm just trying to go home. I just got off work. They were like, do you need help? No. He's like, no, leave me alone. And he kept walking. The officer kept following. And so eventually got to the point where the officer arrested the young man, took him in overnight, and then eventually dropped the charges. However, it was one of those cases. Many people are saying when he said, "Leave me alone," or "I'm going home," the officer should have just retreated at that point. Like, I'm not an officer. I don't know. And I do understand if you get a call, you have to investigate until you find, probable cause either to make a choice. Again, I'm not an officer. So, can you give us some insight of what could have, should have happened in that situation, and how, are we as citizens? And I know this is going to get some feedback, but how can we as citizens kind of help also diffuse the situation? Okay. It's
Well,
sometimes it feels like
yeah,
I'll just let you go, and then I'll.
I'm not familiar with that exact story, but to me, it sounds like the officer's trying to help the individual. And I don't know if the individual's mental capacity was fully functional or not. And, you know, if the conditions were bad, that his life is impaired due to the elements, then, that's concerning. And I guess was apparently concerning to the officer. And could he left him alone? Yeah, he certainly could have. And we wouldn't have heard the rest of the story. Um, you know, did the officer maybe go too far by putting him in jail? Yeah, that's kind of excessive there too. Uh, Back during this cold weather that we had, we encountered individuals that if they're out walking, ask do they need a ride or do they need anything. It's cold, and some we gave rides, and some would say no, I don't need your help. We let it go. We had homeless individual here that was living in a tent during all of this, and he refused to go to shelter of any kind. And he would say, just leave me alone, get out of here and leave me alone. I don't want your help. But every day, the officer would go check on him and say, hey, is there anything we can do for you? Can I do anything for you? Can we get you anything? No, I don't want your help. Well, we left him alone. But he had numerous sleeping bags and a lot of blankets and things like that. But he's still living in a tent during these below freezing temperatures. And that's unfortunate. But a lot of times, that individual probably has some mental issues, um, that's concerning, and that may be the case with a lot of our homeless individuals, that they may be off their medications and having mental issues, and a lot of times they don't want help, and but we're always trying to intervene and give help and get people to resources. We keep a few sleeping bag emergency packs available. We do encounter somebody like this that's out in the elements, that we can at least go pick up the sleeping bag that has these hand warmers and things like that and hand it to them and say, hey, well, at least take this and, um, keep yourself warm. If I can't do anything else for you, you can at least take this from us. So this is something that we've partnered with the local VFW club, that they're buying and getting these items donated and making available, that we can hand them out. So that, again, that situation, unfortunate, but I really think that the officer's intent was that, hey, this person could face a worse fate of death than being put in jail in a warm environment. Uh, so it's a personal decision, but if you're going to arrest them, then the charge needs to be legitimate, um, and
Well,
that's why we have mental health counselors on our team now. So we don't put people in jail for mental health issues. We get them to the crisis center and get them evaluated. So if we think somebody's in a mental crisis state, we can take them and have them evaluated.
well, I'll send you the link to the story. In this case, the young man, he was 18 and he was full capacity. He worked at Walmart overnights, and his mom worked late hours. And the reason for him walking was he didn't want to wake his mom up.
Sure.
And unfortunately, in that part of Texas, they don't get that kind of weather. So he had to walk more in the street versus the sidewalk. And yes, he was slipping, on the ice. So it may look like he was stumbling. He didn't have a coat on. He just felt like he needed a coat. I don't understand, but that's the premise of the story. And as you see the officer encounter the young man, oh, there's two of them rather, but the lady is talking the most. Um, she basically just keeps following him. He's constantly telling her, can you please leave me alone? I'm trying to go home. I just want to go home. I just got off work. I want
But
to
she
go home.
offered him a ride also.
She did offer it. She's like, do you need a ride? He's like, no, I'm fine. I just want to go home. And so they kept following him. And then it got to a point where I guess he just didn't want to turn around and talk to them. And one of the officers said, okay, you're being detained. And he's like, for what? What I do? And that's where the citizens of the community are enraged. At that point, it's like, he told you, leave me alone. I want to go home. And now you're detaining him. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I'll send you the link to the story and the
Yeah, I can
details.
understand that. And like I said, I think, if the officer made several attempts to try to give him a ride or do for him, and he didn't want to take upon it, they leave him alone. Uh, Again, there's some people that, you're not going to be able to help. And we see that, unfortunately, every day. But the sad thing is, what if that guy succumbed to frostbite and end up losing a foot or a hand, because he had a problem with the police. You know, you're in a situation, and he may have had such a issue with the police that he didn't want any help from them, even if it was for his own safety. And that brings us back to community policing. What's going on in his mind with police in the past, that he doesn't want to trust the police or be involved with the police or doesn't want any help for the police. So that's why uh, being engaged with the community and building trust with the community is so important. So when people do get in time of need, that hey, we're there to help. We're not just here to put people in jail. We do more help than we do jailing, and so we just want you to be able to to have that trust and what's going on, and that's what agencies need to focus on across the country. Is you need to embrace your community, be engaged with the community. So when these situations pop up, you're not having this kind of issue. I mean,
Okay.
if it was me and I was out cold, I'd take it a ride from anybody. But again, there's something else going on prior to this that why he didn't want to take a ride. I'm sure, but I'm sure there's more to the story. Uh,
Well, just as you mentioned, that was when his family was interviewed, that was their concern, is that due to the temperature of the nation,
sure,
that there was just that concern about, am I going to make it home? Am I going to be another headline? Um, and sadly, that is the mood of many people across the United States. And so, um, as we move throughout this year, do you hope that the police department, or are you going to try to make efforts to have more of these engaging conversations? I know we're limited on what we can do in person when it comes to large gatherings, but I personally feel like we need to, once a quarter, once however, need to start having more of these interactions. Even if it's 5 people and an officer, allowing people the opportunity to ask questions. People registering for Zoom, I know that's kind of like herding cats sometimes, but
right.
whatever it takes to
Yeah,
increase that engagement.
we have always been open for community engagement. We're on this show every month, first Wednesday of the month, 9 o'clock. We always talk about whatever topic that wants to be brought up, either from you or from the callers. I come 5 minutes to 9. I don't know what the topic of the day is going to be most of the time. So when you're asking these questions, I'm just telling you, shooting straight from the hip that hey, this is what it is. So we always want to engage the community, and again, with the COVID easing up, I think these conversations in groups, organizations, and things like that, absolutely, we want to be back out in the community and engage in the community. Uh, our officers are tired of the COVID. Also, they want to engage. They love getting out and visiting with people and talking with people. So I think the community wants it, the staff wants it, and you know we're, we're we're ready. And like I said, we're getting hopefully on the back end of this pandemic that we can get back to some normal things. We may do things just a little bit different here and there, but we do want to engage and continue our community conversation. So if you have a group that you would like for the police to come and talk to, you can contact Sergeant Shay Racy. He is in charge of our community outreach here at the Jonesboro Police Department, and he'll be glad to set up that event, come talk to you, or have somebody scheduled to come talk to you and on whatever subject matter you wish to talk about.
And I had a question. It's going to come to me, but we're going to get ready to take another quick break, and want to thank everyone for checking in. Do we have a comment? Want to read? I don't have time to read it while we're on air because we're going to go to break. But thank you all for checking in. And again, if you have any more questions or comments, drop them in our live feed on Facebook. We're going to continue the conversation there with Chief Rick Elliot, and maybe Laken's will join us in our last segment. He's been mighty quiet, but we do appreciate Chief. And I know I throw some stuff out there at you, but you know, I it's my job to be on social media and to look at comments and see what's happening and try to help bring those topics close to home. I know we
Sure.
don't encounter all of that, but just to get the conversation started. But we'll be right back after these announcements. Okay, so um yes, try to, again, we don't encounter all of that in Jonesboro. And again, I'm not out in the streets, but I try to stay on top of the news. of what's happening locally. And I just like to bring conversation so that, again, if we never have a conversation about things, we'll never know
That's
what's what on the matter.
right.
um,
Yeah,
but we do have a
you know, go ahead.
okay. This is from Mr. Coleman. He says, people that walk from point A to point B don't pose a threat to officers. Um, People don't need rides. They might have a bad day, death from a family member, loss of job, etc. They need to clear their mind. The last thing I want to do is talk to an officer. So that's his take on the matter of what we just discussed. Sometimes people are just out walking. Yes, it's unfortunate, during the snowstorm, people should be dressed properly, whatever. But um, yeah,
Well, again, if it's a snowstorm and there's a guy walking without coat, uh, I would I would be more upset at my officer if they didn't stop and say, "Hey, can I do anything for you?" If they refuse to help at that point, then so be it. But just to drive by somebody that looks like there's something needs some help or whatever, that's wrong. Now, load them up, take them to jail. That's not right either. But I, there's times that we encounter people. That'd be like driving by somebody with a flat tire on the side of the road. What do you else do? Just drive on by and let it go? Well, that's somebody in need. What if it's a handicapped individual, somebody that doesn't know how to change a tire? You know, it, you don't want our compassion to go away because you end up in a society that you know all this will go away. And that's what something good as you got, and you have police again where there's no community engaging, and where the police don't care about the community. They'll drive right by you. They don't care about your crime or whatever, what's going on in your neighborhood. So we're compassionate and we care about our community and the people involved in the community. If somebody looks like they're in distress, we'll certainly offer assistance. And if they don't want it, then okay.
yeah. The
But
question I was gonna,
I
oh,
understand people, when the weather's nice, when people are out walking, we're not stopping and asking you need a ride or anything.
all right. And one question I want to ask, hope we can get it in before we go back on air. We've talked about in the past, having officers in neighborhoods where they resemble the residents that live there. On the reverse side of that, in the nicer neighborhoods, where we know what the demographic is more like, do you try to place minority officers in those areas as well to help? This is a loaded question, I guess, but to help everyone become accustomed and used to and get to know each other. You know, it.
Well, you got to bear in mind, we run on a shift anywhere from 15 to 18 officers.
I'm sorry, we're
We
gonna put a pause. I'm sorry, we're gonna go back on. Okay, welcome back to Community Conversations on Kelly K 102.5 of them. I had asked the chief a question, so I'm going to give him the opportunity to finish answering my question. I apologize, chief. Go ahead.
want to repeat the question.
So the question was, we've talked in the past about having officers in communities where they represent or resemble the majority of the demographic of that neighborhood. On the reverse side of that, do you also try to place, say, minority officers in areas where they are not the majority of that neighborhood so that everyone can get to know each other and become more comfortable and accustomed to each other? If that sounds, I'm
Right.
trying to be a little PC about the question, but
Yeah, we run anywhere from 12 to 18 officers a shift. And on a typical month, we'll answer anywhere from 5 to 6,000 calls for service. So getting in the neighborhoods and just patrolling things like that, uh, there's not a whole lot of that right now. The call volume, it's one call to the next. So the the feel good, cruising the neighborhood, getting out and socializing. It's we're not having that. It's it's calls for service are back to back, and they're going from one to the other, dealing with different situations. So the placing an officer just based on their race in a certain area, no, it just the officers that generally work the same area every day. We try to keep them in the same area as much as possible, so they can learn that area. And sometimes it's minority officers in uh, you know minority parts of town, and sometimes it's not. But it's a mix, and we base it on officers' present or preferences on if they have seniority, they can choose the areas that they wish to work in. So, uh, but across the board, that we have diversity out there, and people uh, see the diversity in the department. And
Okay. Well, that leads to another question, but we have a few more comments. Jessica McDuffie says, Amen Q. Yes, they need more community engagement. Says, great answer, Chief. This was to the previous discussion. And then Miss Linda Johnson Fraser says, yes, Jessica, more community interactions would help bridge the gap with citizens and police, but we all have to be open minded with the process and respect one another. It's not easy. Fear plays a factor on both sides. So I hope that as the year progresses, we can have a little more community engagement in whatever form that looks like, so that the citizens can get to know the officers. Because again, I don't know, I know a handful of the officers myself. I would like to at least just put a face to a name and say hey or something.
right,
Um, with
and that's why we go to our social media platform. We're doing more to highlight what the officers are doing. We're showing different officers, throughout our social media. It's not just me all the time or certain person all the time. We're choosing different officers to highlight them on different things. Uh, just to show there's more to the department and showing them engaging with the community. Again, they want to engage, but again, we've been on restrictions. So,
yes,
as I said a while ago, education is an important component. We learn from each other when we have a conversation. So that's why we have the Citizen Police Academy. We learn from the citizens as much as they learn from us. And as we have any kind of sit down conversations with individuals, we learn from you as well as you will learn from us. So to help quash any fears or concerns that people have, yeah, we want to have these engagements and sit downs and to overcome that, because hopefully if once you receive the power of knowledge, you can go and spread and help promote things on our behalf also.
okay,
So when you engage in conversation, we learn from each other. As I've always said, we're better off when we talk to each other instead of at each other.
okay. Now I want to and kind of wrap up our conversation, going back to the police testing and things of that nature, and then lead that into community engagement involvement with the police. What are the qualifications, or what would you say someone needs to possess character wise to become an officer? If you want to see what, be the person you want to see in your community. I'm trying to wrap that up in a nice little bow, but can you talk about that
Well,
as we,
I want you to be of good moral character. Be a person that I'm looking for outgoing type of personalities. If uh, if your personality is an introverted type of individual, then you're not going to get out and engage with the public. So people that have that outgoing personality is kind of what we're looking for, because we deal with the public and we engage with the public. And there's been times that we've hired individuals that just didn't really have that what it took to engage with individuals. They found it hard to engage with people, and unfortunately, we had to cut them loose. It's like you're struggling here, and this is not where we are, and you're in this training phase of life, and you're not meeting our expectations. So, you know, I'll get rid of them. I have high expectations for what I bring in. I will not sacrifice quality just to fill slots.
Okay.
I will only choose what applicant I think that best suits the department. So we go through a lot of applicants to get what hopefully is a quality applicant. And even at that, sometimes they don't work out. If they don't work out, I'll get rid of them.
All righty. So again, everyone, it takes all of us living in this space to get to know each other, interact with each other in a positive manner, look out for each other, become neighbors. I want to
Okay.
say again, but just continually be neighbors to one another, and not just your neighbor across the street next door, your neighbor across town. We are a small knit community. Um, we've had a lot of accolades. Let's continue on that. Um, we can do it. It's going to take all of us working together.
You're right. And that's our motto that we've adopted, better together.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
we've actually have stickers out there that says better together, hashtag better together. That's kind of our slogan that we've adopted in the department. As we work with the community, we're better together. So
All right.
as we're starting to wind up this morning, we want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to us. And we did not get a chance to talk about our annual report that has come out. So if
Oh,
you have interest in our annual report, go to jonesboropolice.com and the full report is available for your viewing pleasure. So uh, go through that, and maybe next time on the show, we can
yes.
go back and go over that. There's a lot of statistical material inside that's probably a show within itself. But
Okay. We'll definitely do that for April. This is
okay,
March. It is. We'll
that's
definitely
Mark.
do that for April. I got to keep up. All
Well,
right.
maybe by next month we can maybe be back in person, and but either way, we're going to connect with the community any way we can, and we're looking forward to it this spring. That maybe things ease up and we can kind of get back to seeing and being engaged.
All righty. So,
Absolutely.
well, I want to read a comment right quick before we get off Facebook. I want to thank everybody that did check in. Mr. Jonathan Park Sr. says, absolutely great job, Chief. Thanks for setting the bar so high for whoever follows in your footsteps. Impeccable answers to all the questions. Ms. Linda Johnson Fraser says, I've been blessed to meet and get to know a lot of the JPD officers, and the ones I've encountered have really been great men and women officers. And Jessica McDuffie says, Amen. We're better off when we talk to each other instead of at each other. So I want to make sure to get those comments in. And there's some more if you have time to go back and look over some.
Good deal.
All right, again, I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh no, I've just enjoyed. I've been, even though I didn't chime in, I definitely enjoyed the conversation. Always a pleasure to have you on, Chief, and I too am looking forward to doing it again in the studio, and of course all the community service, especially this fall with that trunk or treat. Miss doing that, and the national night out as well.
Absolutely. I think by this fall we're going to be full steam ahead, and I'm looking forward to a better year than we had last year, and a lot of good things we're going to do together. And always appreciate the support of KLEK on promoting these projects and reaching out and helping us engage the community. So it's a great partnership that we have formed over the years, and we want to continue that mission.
All
Absolutely.
right. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in on our Facebook Live feed. Does it for your Wednesday community conversations. Y'all have a great and blessed day.
Amen. Thank you all.